Thank you, Madam President. As the Senate prepares to debate the critical reform of our nation's health care system, I am privileged to stand at the Massachusetts desk from which the voice, that unmistakable booming voice of the most effective legislator of our time, was heard throughout this chamber that he loved for nearly half a century. The voice of Senator Edward M. Kennedy called out against injustice, denial of opportunity, and needless suffering of every kind, sometimes with humor, sometimes with indignation. He spoke skillfully and tirelessly as the champion of working families, the poor, the disabled, and those engaged in a constant struggle for economic and social justice. Of all the issues on which he led the Senate and our nation, the one Ted Kennedy called the cause of his life was the battle for affordable, quality health care. He saw the need as universal, made real by experiences deeply personal. He was the father of three children who faced serious illnesses and received the finest health care in the world. He understood firsthand the anguish of a parent who learns that a child is gravely ill. And he found it unacceptable that some Americans receive quality health care and millions of others do not. For almost 50 years, his voice thundered in this chamber and across the nation with a clear and compelling message. Affordable, quality health care must be a basic right for all and not a privilege for the few. In Senator Kennedy's own maiden speech to this chamber, he noted the conventional wisdom that freshman senators should be seen and not heard. But he felt compelled to speak out on the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because it was the defining moral issue of that time. As the newest of freshman senators, who was honored to stand briefly in his place, I have no doubt about my obligation to Senator Kennedy, to the values and friendships we shared, to the citizens of Massachusetts, and to the country that we love. And so, Madam President, I am grateful for this opportunity to speak out at another defining moment for our nation on what I and Senator Kennedy believe to be the moral issue of this time. At this moment, we are closer to realizing the long-held dream that all Americans have access to quality, affordable health care than at any time in our nation's history. By seizing this moment, at long last, we will put America on equal standing with other nations that long ago assured their citizens quality, affordable health care as a matter of right. Despite the urging of Republican and Democratic presidents alike, from Theodore Roosevelt to Bill Clinton, the United States remains the only industrial nation that has yet to guarantee health care for all its citizens. It has been 40 years, Madam President, since Edward Kennedy gave his first speech on this issue. In an address at the Boston University Medical Center, he declared that the time had come to establish a national plan to provide affordable and quality health care for every American. Rough estimates at the time suggested 25 million were without any coverage. Today, we have 46 million uninsured Americans. In the 4 decades since Ted Kennedy issued that challenge, despite the expenditure of trillions of dollars and the passing of a generation, millions of Americans worry each day whether their health insurance will be there for them and for their children. They fear their insurance company will drop them if they are sick, or set limits on their coverage that will leave them destitute. They wonder if their insurance will be adequate, and if they are but one serious illness away from bankruptcy. They ask why insurance companies are permitted to charge higher premiums for women than for men. They are afraid if they lose their jobs, they will be unable to get new insurance. because they have a pre-existing condition. And worse, tens of millions of our fellow citizens go to bed each night praying that their children will stay well because they have no insurance at all. They work hard, they play by the rules, they do everything possible to provide for their families, but they need every penny to put a roof over their heads and food on the table, and in the end, they simply cannot afford health insurance. After decades of falling short of the mark, quality, affordable health care for all Americans is at long last within their reach. Thanks to the leadership of Senator Reid, Senator Dodd, Senator Baucus, and others, in combining the bipartisan work of the Health and Finance Committee, and thanks to similar work being done in the House of Representatives and to the leadership and support of President Obama, we are closer than ever to fixing our broken health care system. Yes, there are issues yet to be resolved, and in the days ahead, I too will advocate for a public option because we need to stimulate competition and reduce costs in the health care marketplace. I will also speak for the so-called Class Act, a voluntary, self-funded, self-insured, deficit-reducing plan that will protect millions of Americans against the crushing cost of long-term services and support so necessary in their senior years. But, Madam President, as this debate moves forward, we who are privileged to serve in this historic body, on both sides of the aisle, have the opportunity and the obligation to take the long view, to put aside partisan politics, and come together to seize this unique and critical moment in our history. Bipartisanship works for the people. Only 3 years ago, with Senator Kennedy's guidance, Democrats and Republicans of Massachusetts worked together to adopt a health reform plan approved by a Democratic legislature, signed by a Republican governor, and implemented with essential support from a Republican president. The experience of Massachusetts was bipartisan. It has helped to shape the legislation this Senate will soon consider. Our national legislation draws ideas from both sides of the aisle and from all parts of the political spectrum. And like our Massachusetts reform, it will make a life-saving and cost-saving difference for millions of Americans, whatever their station in life and whatever their political persuasion. It is regrettable that efforts for reform in the Senate and the House have been under assault by special interests who have a financial stake in our failing health care system. As part of that opposition, they have attacked the success of our reform in Massachusetts. Well, let me set the record straight. First, because of our bipartisan reforms, less than 3% of the Massachusetts population is without health insurance today, lower than any other state. Second, the most respected independent fiscal watchdog concluded that Massachusetts implemented its reform in a fiscally responsible and financially sustainable way. Third, unlike every other state, employer-based health insurance is increasing in Massachusetts. And finally, according to a recent statewide poll by the Harvard School of Public Health, 79% of the public and practitioners in every sector of the Massachusetts healthcare system, including physicians, strongly support our bipartisan reform. Let me quote a recent message from a Massachusetts doctor. You will be glad to know that I just saw the very last uninsured patient in my panel of about 300 patients for whom I am the primary care physician. He is a 62-year-old diabetic electrician from Mattapan. He finally got his insurance last month. With the help of the reform law, we are now finally getting his eye exam, his blood work, and refilling all his prescriptions. Madam President, that's just one example of the substantial difference a bipartisan health reform measure has made in the lives of the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that's the kind of substantial difference bipartisan reform can make in the lives of people all across America. I am the 100th member, the most junior member of this distinguished body, but I am hopeful that a newcomer's perspective will be received as a constructive contribution to this debate. Let me be candid. At this moment, when America's families are imperiled by economic hardship and uncertainty, it gives them no comfort to see the United States Senate so politically polarized over an issue that should be bringing us together on their behalf. The accelerating health care and health cost crises strike fear in the hearts of the average American family. These crises should not be dividing this chamber, they should be uniting us. These crises do not discriminate in their impact on our constituents. They are the common fears of Republicans and Democrats, independents and the unenrolled, old and young, urban and rural, businesses large and small, workers organized and unorganized, the self-employed and the unemployed, married and single, straight and gay, and Americans of every ethnic or racial heritage. These are the people we are honored to represent. They expect us to work together in their common interest, and Madam President, I submit they deserve no less. Years from now, history will look upon this debate and record that this was our opportunity to act on the defining domestic obligation of our time. During the coming weeks, I hope each of us will take the long view, think beyond the politics of the day, and come together in good faith to do what is right for our people. When I accepted my oath of office a month ago, much was made of my being the 60th vote for health reform. This debate should not be about one party reaching 60 votes. It should be about 100 senators reaching out to each other to reform a health care system that will better reflect the true values and character of our nation. As this debate continues, we would do well to pause for a moment to hear Ted Kennedy's voice in the quiet of our hearts. You and I know he will urge us to seize this moment, to come together in this common cause, and to make sure, at long last, that all Americans will have access to the quality, affordable health care they have long deserved and now so urgently need.